Thank you for your introduction, Nicola. My colleagues here at the United States and my flatmate too. So today we will present, for those who don't know, the #1 network in ceramics, the Young Ceramics Network. So for those who don't know, this initiative, Young Ceramics Network, belongs to the European Ceramic Society. It's sponsored by the Journals of JECS Trust, and basically it's a non-profit networking aiming to bring together young students and professionals currently doing researches in ceramics, as we are. So why Young Ceramics? What is Young Ceramics Network? Basically, Young Ceramics Network, YCN, is providing a platform for young researchers to build their own professional network, promoting different activities, webinars, contests. We will discuss after, we will see some details and some examples. And it's very nice to promote your career, to boost your career in science. So here is the committee that is keeping the network alive and active. On the one hand, we have Andras, who is based in Slovenia. We have Veronique and Donatella, who are the administrative officers of ESERS. They are based in Belgium. And on the other hand, we have the committee members. We have Erka, the oldest one of the committee. He's based in Finland. Then is Antonia, based in Croatia, but I think that she will move very soon to Finland too with Erka. We have Sonia based in Czech Republic, and after Nicola and I based in United States. So why should you join the YCN, the Young Ceramic Network? In fact, here, Young Ceramic Network provides, as we said, different activities like attending professional events and make contacts and form links between the other young researchers and the industry. You can get benefit from the exchange of ideas and work experience. Moreover, you can get information about funding and job opportunities. For example, today we'll discuss about JECS funding. And moreover, as we said, you can promote your research and innovation in the fields of ceramics. So how to join the YCN? It's super easy. You just have to subscribe to our social media and the newsletter. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, or here, this link, you can subscribe our social media newsletter and you receive all the information regarding new events, new newsletters, and more activities. So here, for example, I had to update this slide just yesterday because we are growing a lot. In fact, on Facebook, we are more than 1,000 members already, and similar on LinkedIn because we are already more than 1,000 members. We are growing a lot thanks to one initiative of representative that we will explain after. We have two, as we said, the Twitter and Instagram account. I encourage you to follow us. We're sending a lot of information and it's fast. So regarding different young ceramics activities that we are doing, we are in charge of different newsletters, both industry and both academia. Here you can promote your research, you can create contacts, boost your career. We are preparing, moreover, some webinars like the one today. We organize photo contests. We organize two open ceramics special issue. We organize also a workshop that we will explain after, Pitch Me Your Idea, with a lot of participants and very nice ideas. And moreover, we are maintaining and creating partnerships with PCSA, an association of ceramics of young professionals of ESERS, Australia, China, and the glass community. So here we have some examples of the YCN newsletter that we are preparing. As I told you here, you can promote, you can advertise your career, the research, you can get contacts, and in fact, it's read by more than 1,000 people, all belonging to the field of ceramics. In fact, we did more than 30 contributions in last year, and we are still working on it. This month, we will have 3 more newsletters. And regarding the webinars, this is the first one of 2022, but we prepare more than 10 webinars with more than 19 speakers and with a lot of participants. We did two after we will explain the photo contest of this year, but regarding the one of the last year, we had more than 21 micrographs submitted. And here we can see the winners. The winner was JECS from the JECS Technical University. And of course, you will have some awarded after we will discuss. We prepare also Open Ceramics special issue to the best scientific paper of young ceramists in the spotlight with an award of 1,000 euros. We have more than 70 submitted manuscripts, 54 were accepted. So that means more than 70% of percentage of accepted papers. And in fact, Victor Canicer was awarded with the best paper, and of course with the award, the price of 1,000 euros. It's a very good article. I recommend you to read it. We prepare also an online event with kind of competitions, pitch your idea. Basically here, young researchers were promoting and advertising the research they are conducting, and showing potential ideas to use this research with some kind of applications. And here we got 4 different winners. The first one was Bocet from University of Chemistry and Technology of Prague. And all of these, they got some money prizes and moreover free registration for the JECS 2022 in Krakow. But I hope to see you there, all of you. Here are all the pictures of all the winners and participants of the Pitch Me Your Idea. So what are the plans for the future for YCN? We are still preparing more webinar series like the one of today. We will continue with more in 2022. Also, as I told you, we are preparing the Students' Evening in Krakow. This is kind of activities that we will have at the conference Ceramics, European Ceramics in Krakow. You know that it's like gathering 3 different congress, ICC9, the JECS, and the electroceramics. Also, we started with a new initiative, YCN representatives. This is mainly young researchers who are representative of different countries, which belong to the Young Ceramics Network. For now, we have more than 20 members, and they are preparing a lot of activities. They are advertising and promoting YCN2 in different conferences and congress. So we will give you more details in the future, what's exactly the role and more activities they are preparing. And of course, regarding to YCN representative, we are preparing also a collaboration map. Here we will have kind of tool to access to new collaborations and the use of equipments within the YCN community. So for example, this will be very useful to know what kind of equipments I can use in different universities that I need to boost, to improve my research, and to start new collaborations within the network. So here, the photo contest 2022 is still open. You have, I cannot see here, sorry, here. The deadline is 1st June 2022, and the results will be presented in 12 July during the student evening at the Ceramics in Europe. So I encourage you to participate because there is a nice prize, and moreover, you can meet us there in the students' evening at Krakow. So thank you for your attention, and please join us as soon as possible because this will be the best way to boost your career, to meet more people, to do networking, and you will see how many possibilities and opportunities they will be open after you join YCN. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leandro. Thank you for this great presentation. So now we will have the pleasure and the honor to welcome Professor Jon Binner for his presentation. So Professor Binner is a professor of ceramic science and engineering in the School of Metallurgy and Materials at the University of Birmingham in the UK. So he received his bachelor and PhD degree in ceramic science and engineering from Leeds University, also in the UK. And the focus of his research is the scientific understanding and the required engineering solutions to develop processing routes for ceramic materials that can display technical or financial advantages over existing processes and that can yield to new improved materials. So he holds a series of faculty positions in University of California, UCLA, Leeds, Nottingham, Brunel, and Loughborough University. Professor Binner has published about 240 research papers, as well as editing or contributing to 19 books, given around 80 keynote, plenary, and invited talks at international conferences. He also holds 7 patents. Moreover, Professor Binner is involved in several societies and associations, like the American Ceramic Society, the Institute of Materials, Minerals, and Mining, and the Association for Microwave Power in Europe for Research and Education. He is, of course, the past president of European Ceramic Society, ESERS, and the current chair of JECS Trust. So that's why today he will answer the question how to get JECS Trust funding for your ceramic research in Europe. As you may know, the JECS Trust is a great source of funding from ESERS and its journal to help young researchers to improve their mobility and their networking. So after the presentation, you will have the chance to put all your questions in the chat. So please do not be shy and do it. After we will ask the questions to Professor Binner at the end of its presentation. So Professor Binner, thank you again and welcome. The stage is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much indeed. So hopefully everybody can see the screen at the moment. And I'd like to begin by thanking enormously the members of the YCN. I think they're doing an absolutely fantastic job. And anybody who is not a member of the YCN, join it. You've got absolutely nothing to lose and you've got a lot you can gain. I'd also like to thank very much Veronique. She produced these slides and I am ever so grateful to her for doing so. So thank you very, very much indeed. Okay, so I'm going to begin with a dozen slides about the European Ceramic Society. I'm going to go through them quite quickly because I'm sure most people are aware, but there may be some who are not. So European Ceramic Society, it's a non-governmental federation of the national European Ceramic Societies, and we began back in 1987. And you can see here the goals: encourage education, training and research, bring together research establishments and academic bodies and individuals, collect, disseminate and exchange information, promote and organize conferences and meetings, and publish technical papers. So basically anything you can do to do with ceramics, then ESERS is there to encourage it and enhance it in Europe. We have a permanent executive committee, which you can see here. I will not introduce everybody, but what I will do is simply point out to you the diversity of countries which are represented on the permanent executive committee. And as we've heard, every 2 years, the European Ceramic Society organizes a major conference, an exhibition. It rotates around Europe. We should have had our big conference last year, but of course COVID intervened, so now it's being held in July this year, and as we've already heard, it's being held jointly with ICC9 and Electroceramics. There, as you're all, I'm sure, aware, there are so many conferences happening in 2022, it made a lot of sense to combine these three together, and that's going to be held in Krakow in Poland. We've already got 700 abstracts. Which is a super number. And I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at this event in Krakow. In terms of your diaries for the next one, the 2023 conference, because we're going to keep the original 2-year spacing, will be held from the 2nd to the 7th of July in Lyon, in France, and the 2025 conference will be in August that year in Dresden in Germany. And then as part of these big events, we have the ESERS Student Speech Contest, when young research students representing one each from each of the ESERS member countries give an oral presentation that is evaluated by a jury. It's a fantastic event, and I'm terribly proud that a few years ago, one of my PhD students actually won that. So it really is something that I would encourage, again, everybody to get involved with. In addition, we have a number of other events. For example, the Young Ceramic Additive Manufacturing Forum is held, and this year it's going to be in November at the University of Barcelona in Spain. The call for abstracts is open right now. The extended deadline is coming up in a couple of 3 weeks' time, and early bird registration is also open, and that will be open, the early bird, until the 31st of August. Every 2 years, we also have the Electroceramics Conference. Clearly, this year's is part of the conference in Krakow. And then also this year, we have Shaping 8, the 8th conference in that series. And that's being held in September, as you can see, in Dubendorf in Switzerland. Again, the early bird registration is open right now. And then associated with a lot of the big events we also have training or summer schools, and no less than 4 of these are being organized by ESAs this year. So in June, next month, in Trieste in Italy, and you can see it's talking about antimicrobial biomaterials. Later in June in Aachen and Germany, and also being held virtually, we have an event looking into refractory design from an ecological, economic and eco-energetic perspective. Prior to the Krakow conference, we have the fundamentals and advanced technologies of sintering. And then around the time again of the Shaping 8 conference in September, we have one looking at ceramic shaping. Now, ESAs allows 15 grants of €1,200 every year to attend the ACES January Winter Workshop. Now, this is tied in with the big conference they hold every sort of at the end of January, beginning of February in Daytona Beach in Florida. The last call, we had 54 applications received. The next call will be launched in August this year. So if you fancy trying to attend and get a grant towards attending that conference in Daytona in 2023, look out for the call when it comes out in August this year. We have a number of working groups, and again, I won't go through all of these, but do be aware of them. They can be tremendously beneficial for your career. We've already mentioned the Young Ceramist Network, but there's also bioceramics, electroceramics, additive manufacturing, in particular, which you may be very interested in joining. And then we also have the working groups you can see there. I'm sure you're all aware ESAS is associated with the publication of 2 journals. We have JECS, which is the longer one of the 2. It has an impact factor back in 2020 of over 5. That's a really fantastic value. Open Ceramics is a new, it only launched a couple of years ago. And so you've now got these choices, and you will keep hearing about these journals throughout the presentation. Just so that you're aware, ESAS has 28 full members. You can see them all there. I am delighted that the United Kingdom, despite being complete idiots and voting for Brexit, are members of the full members of ESAS. And then we've also got 2 associate members, which are Iran and Morocco. And the wonderful thing is, if you are a member of your national society of any of these 30 countries, you are automatically a member of ESAS. So it is not a case that you have to pay extra. You join your national society and then you are automatically a member of ESAS as well. So when you pay to join your national society, you're getting 2 memberships for the price of 1. And what are the advantages of being a member of ESAS? Well, reduced prices to conferences and the training schools, reduced subscription fees for the journals, access to the calls for projects such as the JECS Trust, which I'm about to launch into now. Then there's that winter workshop in Daytona Beach in January every year, and also something called Frontiers of Research. So there's a lot to be gained by being a member of ESAS. But for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to be focusing very much on the JECS Trust. So this is funding for ceramic research and education, and especially, of course, in Europe. And this trust was created in 2007, and the idea is that Elsevier published the European Ceramic Society journal, and it made money in doing so. And so ESAS persuaded Elsevier that really and truly they wanted to pass on some of that money to ESAs to allow ESAs to be able to fund different things. It was all agreed back 15 years ago now. And so the idea behind having the JECS Trust is to enable the European Ceramic Societies to engage in a broad range of activities for the benefit of its membership, to strengthen research and teaching, and of course, to maintain and build on the current strong position of the journal. And of course, now we don't just have the Journal of the European Ceramic Society, we also have Open Ceramics. And we're not talking small sums of money here. More than €3 million has already been awarded across 290 different projects. So this is not a few euros here and there. Quite large grants can be given, and you'll hear more about what you can and can't go for in the following slides. The money is allocated by the JECS Trust board. I am the current chair of the JECS Trust because I am ESA's past president, and this is something that passes on. But you also have a number of other members of the JECS Trust whom you can see there. And it's our job to make sure that this money is given out incredibly fairly and that all good ideas get a really fair hearing. We can't, of course, fund everything, but we certainly do our very best. So the main focus in terms of spending the trust money is towards student and young research activities. It is not limited to that, but we do try and help students and young researchers generally as much as we can. But there are, as you would imagine, a number of rules and regulations which underpin this. So we do expect publications after an event to occur in either JECS, the Journal of the European Ceramic Society, or in Open Ceramics as appropriate. So that's the number one thing. We get the money because of the success of JECS and Open Ceramics, and therefore we want to make sure that they benefit from the JECS Trust as well by having your papers. In addition, applicants must be either members of a ceramic society affiliated to ESAs or direct members of ESAs. People who are outside of Europe, not able to join a European national society or Iran or Morocco, can join ESAs directly. And if they do so, they're then eligible to apply for this funding. And they must be a member for at least 12 months. We do relax that if the applicant is a student or young researcher, but they still have to be a member. And if the applicant is a student or a young researcher and they have a supervisor, then the supervisor must have been a member of ESAs by whatever means for at least 12 months. The trust, unless it is a specific thing, the trust does not accept proposals from individuals seeking support for attending conferences. If we could spend the money, as you can imagine, 100 times over if we just supported people to attend conferences. Training schools and this sort of thing, of course, is different, but for just attending conferences, JECS Trust can't accept that. And the use of the JECS Trust money must be really clearly identified in the application. So just simply saying, I want some money, yes, I'm sure you do, but again, you must make sure things are really clear. And you'll see some of these comments coming up again when we go through some of the tips. So JECS Trust money cannot be used to cover registration fees, meals, dinners, drinks, and so forth. Excuse me. When travel expenses are allowed, then the amounts agreed by the JECS Trust are as follows: a maximum of €500 for travel and accommodation, and a €150 maximum for local participants. So international participants, if you're traveling from one country to another, it's one sum. If you're traveling to an event in your own country, it's a lesser sum. The JECS Trust can also provide promotional items on demand, so please don't put down, if you submit a bid, saying I want so much money to buy some USB sticks, because the JECS Trust has them. The same applies to pens, notepads, lanyards and badges and so forth. If you're planning to, if you're asking to have some money to host a conference or a workshop, please be aware that a representative of the JECS Trust Board could well attend the event, and they will then attend it for free. And in doing so, they will then promote the JECS Trust, and they will be there to check that the JECS Trust is being well advertised. So, you know, we won't do this for every event, but we can attend the events and just make sure that everything is running smoothly. And any contest supported by the JECS Trust must be called a JECS Trust contest, and any prizes awarded must be called JECS Trust prizes. And I'm sure you can work out the reason why we want that. We want the visibility so that people get to hear more and more about the JECS Trust. And the arrangements for any publication arising from the activity must be approved in advance. So if you're saying, we'll publish the proceedings, do make sure you've already talked to either JECS or Open Ceramics and have the agreement of the editor. And of course, they must have the first option to publish the papers. We have different types of activities you will see, but common for mobility and general activities. Applicants wishing to receive support should submit their bids electronically to the JECS Trust Secretariat. Decisions by the JECS Trust Board are final. So I'm sorry if you don't like the decision, please don't think that you can argue and get us to change our minds. We do look into these really carefully, and the meetings, the board meetings, we go through each one individually and consider the advantages and the disadvantages and so forth. And of course, applicants must be a member of a non-profit organization, such as a university or a research lab, or they can be an individual. We don't expect to have applications from commercial companies, or indeed from ESA's Permanent Executive Committee. Now, in terms of what can help you, we really don't want to be unduly prescriptive. If we get too prescriptive, then we will limit your thinking, and we don't want to do this. We want some genuinely new and innovative ideas. We welcome them. But as you're coming up with your ideas, there are a few things that can help you do well. So activities involving a collaboration between multiple members of ESAs, that is, multiple countries. So they must involve at least 2 countries, and one of those will have to be an ESA's full member. And the other, of course, can be a full member or an associate member country. It is beneficial, it is not a requirement, but it is beneficial if activities involve students or early stage researchers. Applicants should be for a clearly identifiable activity, not a sort of a part of something that's much bigger and you just want a bit of a contribution. It's better if the funding gives rise to a benefit that would not otherwise be possible. So it's better. These are favorable factors. They're not absolute factors. Activities that lead to high quality contributions to JECS or Open Ceramics. So again, we want high quality papers for these journals. Otherwise, I'm afraid, if they're not high quality, the journals won't necessarily take them. Applicants from regular contributors to the journals. So again, this is to encourage people to publish in the journals, and by publishing in the journals get better, and therefore more money flows in. So it's again favourable, it's not an essential, but favourable for applicants to be regular contributors to the journals. And also, if you can get contributions from other sources, if you can decrease the cost to the JECS Trust, that will also be regarded favourably. So what are some examples? Well, in terms of general activities, events such as workshops, particularly those that are specifically aimed at students or early stage researchers, and that also can include high school teachers. So, getting the message out about ceramics to high school teachers is also something that is well received. Activities, of course, coming from ESA's working groups. So we have those working groups. I showed them on the slide earlier. And if they are proposing ideas, then the PEC, the Permanent Executive Committee, will look at them. And after they've accepted them, then that's fine. They'll come on to the JECS Trust. And of course, workshops on topical research areas. So these could be new things that are coming up, new developments, and so topical research areas. It could be it's simply time to have another one of these in this field. It's something we do every 3 or 4 years or every 2 or 3 years, or it could be something new. We haven't had one on this before. And of course, for all of the meetings, Elsevier have a strong interest in considering the publication of special issues of either JECS or Open Ceramics. And again, they're going to want high quality papers. In terms of mobility, funding of visits by individual researchers to other laboratories. Now, again, there has to be a reason for doing that. And the most common reasons are to learn a new technique or to access equipment not available in their own laboratory. Wanting to have a wonderful stay on a beautiful Greek island for a couple of weeks. It's not quite the reason we want, but if there's a fantastic lab there with some facilities that you don't have and you're going to spend your time in the lab, then that's absolutely fine. Stays can be from a few days to a few weeks and up to 3 months. But again, you need to justify how long, what you're going for so many weeks. You need to justify why that length is needed. The grant awarded can include travel expenses. There will be some extra comments about that coming up later. A per diem of €50 per day. So if your stay is 30 days, that's €1,500. And €500 per month for the host laboratory. And obviously that is an incentive for the host laboratory to host you. We have 2 deadlines every year. May the 31st and November the 30th. And May the 31st, if you're thinking of putting it in, isn't far off. So if you are going to go in for May 31st this year, then now is the time to start writing. The application form can be downloaded at that website. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available, and these slides will also be made available. So don't feel you've got to scribble things down. You will be able to have a look and go through the slides and extract things like the site where the application form can be downloaded. You should submit your bids electronically to the JECS Trust ESA Secretariat. There's the email address, and you put in a second CC to the JECS Trust Gmail account. And that just makes sure we've got your bid well and truly lodged. As I've said, the board of the JECS Trust then makes the decisions at their next meeting, and the meetings are designed to be held just 2 or 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks after the deadline. So we don't want to hold things up too long, but I'll say more about that briefly on a future slide. So that's the basic principles. And now what I thought I'd do really for the majority of the rest of this presentation is just give you a few tips to enhance your chances of success. Some people, I have to say, are serial offenders in terms of not getting things right. So we thought with this presentation, we would point out some of the more common ways in which people manage to put something in that just isn't successful, and therefore give you some tips for how you can enhance your success. The most important is read the instruction and answer the form correctly. Now, I know engineers and scientists are often the worst people at reading instructions. The washing machine packs up, right, start repairing the washing machine, and then if you fail, then go and get the instructions and see what you should have been doing. And you would not believe how many of the proposals that come in, people have simply not read the instructions and they've not answered the form correctly. So please, please, please do it doesn't take long, do take that extra 30 to 60 minutes and make sure you're getting things right. And if you're not sure, do not hesitate to contact the Secretariat and ask. We would far rather, Vero and Donatella would far rather you asked a question than you didn't and put in an application that then had something wrong in it. So, looking at the 2 types of projects separately, the mobility projects, the form can be clicked on from the JECS Trust website. Again, as I said, all these slides will be made available. And just to remind you, you've seen this slide before, the funding for a mobility visit is individual researchers to other labs within Europe for the purposes of learning new techniques or assessing equipment not available. So you've seen this slide before, just to remind you of that fact. So when you fill in the form, bear those comments in mind. The first part of the form is about you, when and where you want to go, 3-month maximum. Please do indicate approximate dates. If you know exact dates, that's fine, but approximate dates are needed. We just want to make sure that, you know, things have been properly thought through. And if it's the approximate dates you give, you can always modify them afterwards slightly if needed. In terms of other funding, one of the things that can happen is that people are engaged in another project funded from another body, and then they think, well, you know, it would be kind of nice to get some JECS Trust money as well. So if you are involved in a project with other sources of funding, describe them, tell us about them. Don't keep it quiet. The fact that you've got other funding will not necessarily rule you out, but you will have to justify why you're asking for JECS Trust funding. So if you've got a Horizon 2020 project or a Marie Curie project or whatever, or even a national level project, then just tell us about it and then explain to us why it is you need JECS Trust and why it can't be funded from this other project. And there are many examples where it can be done successfully. But what we do not allow, and you'll understand why, is double funding for the same activity. Because we've got only a limited amount of JECS Trust and we want to make sure we maximize the people who benefit. We've already mentioned that the applicant must be a member of ESAs, and for 12 months, we do waive the 12-month rule in the event of a student or a young researcher, but in the event of a student, they will have a supervisor, and then the supervisor must have been a member of ESAs for at least 12 months. So if the student or young researcher has not made 12 months, they must be a member, but if they haven't been a member for 12 months, then the supervisor must be. And please, when you submit things, do not forget to add the proofs of membership. Again, we get them in and there's no proof, and then we're in the position of having to chase around and contact the National Society and say, please, and it all takes administrative time, and we are getting firmer and firmer about this sort of thing. As the JECS Trust gets more popular, there just isn't the time to ask Donatella or Vero to start digging into things, so don't forget to add the proofs of membership. Just a reminder, again, 28 full members and 2 associate members, and people can be applying for any of these countries in terms of where to go to. So if the host in the host institution is not a member of ESAs, you will have to justify your reason for choosing the institution. So why this particular, why is it that particular Italian or that German or that Greek or that British institution? What is it they've got and why are you not going somewhere else? So again, the host institution representative should also be a member of ESAs for at least 12 months. And then section 7 is where you describe the scientific part of your project. So far, you've been making absolutely sure that we understand and all the boxes are ticked. This is now where you get to explain the scientific part of your project. Please do not send us a large volume and a 28 or 30 page outline, maximum of 1 A4 page, and it should be inside the form, not submitted as a separate document. If you submit as a separate document, with the best will in the world, with the numbers being dealt with, it might, it's unlikely, but it might get separated, and then we'd be saying, well, where's the description of the proposed activity? So do make sure you include it inside the form. And again, justify things. If you want exceptional costs, this is where you would justify them within that 1 page. The topic of the project must be ceramics, of course, and be within the scope of at least one of the 2 journals. So again, if you're doing something and actually neither JECS nor Open Ceramics will be willing to publish this, then it's unlikely you will be successful. In terms of, we're still talking about mobility, you need to be very clear what the benefits are. And so you're talking about obviously the benefits to you, the individual, you're talking about the benefits, you know, why this host institution, why have you selected this particular lab? Be really clear about it. And it's also a good idea to say how ESAs and or the ceramic community in general can benefit. So think widely in terms of who will benefit. Don't just focus entirely on yourself, but okay, but how am I then? I've benefited. How will my benefit actually be of good for the ceramics community? And of course, as we've said, we do expect you to disseminate the results of your project, and we do expect you to do that dissemination in one of our 2 journals. And of course, it's also good if you present, in addition to publishing in the journal, you can also present at a conference organized by ESAs or any of our partners. Submission to an ESA's journal is mandatory. Now, Open Ceramics has costs associated with it, but those will be covered by the JECS Trust. So you don't have to worry about the costs associated with publication in Open Ceramics. And just to remind you again, you've seen this slide before, we have the 2 journals. So you put in your application, and your application will require you to tell us all the costs. Now, a maximum of €500 per month can be allowed to the host institution. An invoice will be needed from them to ESAs. We can't just ship out €500 per month, but they'll need, the ESAs administrative team need an invoice. Exceptional costs are justified in item 7, but they're stated here. Travel, please, only 1 return ticket. This is not something where you say, well, I want to go and work for 2 months in this other country, but I need to come back every weekend. So 1 return ticket will be covered. And if you think you have a good reason for needing more, you must justify it again back in item 7. And this one is particularly, please note this, once accepted, you can't go around changing your budget. I'm sorry, but we can't be having, we know how much money we have to distribute. We're keeping a running total as we're going through the applications, and we can't have somebody say, well, I said €700, but actually I should have put €1,500, and I need another 800 because we've already allocated the budget. You do not need to justify the per diem of €50. That's what we pay, and therefore no justification is needed. Just put down €50 times the relevant number of days. Now, what you can do is once your project is approved, you can get, if you ask, 50% of the grant can be transferred to you in advance, and that will help you to pay upfront costs, like booking your flights and this sort of thing. Okay, that was mobility. We're now moving on to general activities. So again, you can see where the form is for the general activities. Again, please remember what the general activities can be. You've seen this slide. Events such as workshops. Again, note the comments specifically aimed at students or early stage researchers. Again, you can be thinking about activities coming out of the ESA's working groups, and again, workshops on topical research areas. And again, in terms of this, the forms are not that dissimilar. Obviously, they have to be a bit different, but the principles are the same. So again, the first part is about the organizer, the when and the where the activity will be organized. We do try and give priority to international events. So if it's going to be international, if you're going to be inviting people from all over the world, make it clear. If this is really a European workshop, make that clear. There's nothing wrong with that. National workshops are more tricky because we do have the ruling that really they have to involve more than 2 or more member countries. But again, make it very, very clear exactly what you are asking for. Don't forget about the mandatory ESAs membership. This is just as important for these general activities as for the mobility. Full member, a member of one of the national ceramic societies of ESAs, the associate members of Morocco and Iran, and then you can be an individual member, which means, you know, an American who has nothing to do with Europe, Morocco, or Iran, or an Australian or an Indian or whatever can become an individual member. And just as for the mobility, don't forget to add your proofs of membership. Again, just to remind you of the different countries. So in terms of description of the proposed activity, please describe it here in section 6. If your event is not the first in the series, we advise you to outline briefly or quickly the previous activity. Again, you're limited to one A4 page. Please don't spread onto a second or a third page. But that doesn't mean using font size 6 to try and cram more words in as well. So do think about how you're presenting it. Bullet points is fine. You don't have to use lots and lots of words. If you know them, give us the names of any keynote or invited speakers, anything that will make us realize, you know, just what the value is of this activities. And again, if it can involve students, then that is a very wise move. It's a favorable activity for us to help the early career researchers. So you should also describe that here. So this fitting these things into one page might take 2 or 3 drafts or even more before you've quite got it right. It is worth spending a little bit of time making sure you've covered all the bases and you've put the information out in an easily readable form. Remember, the JECS Trust board members are going to be reading a lot of these forms, and therefore if you can present your ideas with great clarity, it really does help. And just as for the mobility, please one page and inside the document, not as a separate attachment. Exactly the same rules apply here for sources of funding. Describe them if you have any funding coming from anywhere else. For events such as conferences, if you want to organize one, the JECS Trust will support a maximum of 50% of the budget. So you have to know where the other 50% is coming from. And the amounts presented here are presented also in the financial table in item 11. So this is where you describe the various things and then you actually put the numbers again into the financial table later. Benefits, so describe here how your event, whatever it is, will benefit not only the participants, but the speakers, and of course any students or young researchers and the community in general. What will be the benefits for ESAs and its 2 journals? So as well as publications, be thinking in terms of advertising, networking, and so forth. Again, encourage you to think widely and not narrowly. Don't just think of, oh, well, you know, this is the conference will do this. You've got a bit of space, so use that space wisely. You really, if you want to have an event or a conference and it's going to have papers, and conferences of course will, then priority has to be given to the 2 ESAs journal, and you need to advertise this during the event. Participants must be encouraged to submit articles, and of course you must have had the conversation with the relevant editor of the journal, Richard Todd for JECS, Paolo Colombo for Open Ceramics. So if you want a special issue, talk to them in advance of submitting your bid. They both sit on the JECS Trust board and they'll be sitting there saying, well, this is the first I've heard about this, if you haven't discussed it with them in advance. Use of the JECS Trust money, we cannot cover salaries and we don't cover registration fees. And again, ESAs can provide USB sticks, pens, notepads, etc. So please don't ask for money for these things. And again, just as for mobility, once accepted, no change in the budget is allowed. So please do make sure you do a proper job of looking into your budget and don't end up drawing numbers out of thin air and then say to yourself, well, if I get the money, then I'll look into it. Do the looking into it in advance of submitting the bid. It looks quite a complicated table, but actually it's fairly straightforward to put this in. And so you can just fill it in, making sure there is something in. And if there are no other costs, for example, that's fine. Just say there aren't any. If there are, describe what they are for. And the table will add things up for you. And so then you can go through it. And it allows us, when we're considering all these things, to get a very, very clear overview. Make sure things are well described, they're clear. Give them to a friend to read before you submit them, someone who isn't involved in the organization, and see if they can follow it through very clearly. And again, remember that JECS Trust will only cover up to 50% of the total budget of the event. Okay, so there are a few tips on how to do things successfully. And please, when you've done all this, don't forget to send it in on time. Vero and Donatello will often get these things and I missed the deadline, but will you accept it a bit late? So please, May the 31st every year, November the 30th every year are the deadlines. And I'll submit it for May the 31st, but I'll say the event is to be held on June the 1st. No, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. So you really make sure, and this applies as well to mobility or to events, your project, whatever the project is, a mobility project or a general project, it should not be beginning until at least 2 and preferably 3 months after the relevant deadline. So the bids come in May the 31st, November the 30th. Vero and Donatello pull everything together. That takes them several days. Then they've got to get them to us. We have to sit and read and inwardly digest every single one and get our view as to we like it, we don't like it, what we like about it, if there's anything which it's broken the rules. We all have to get our heads around that. Then we have our meeting. Then we decide which are going to be funded, and then the notification has to come out. So if you haven't given sufficient warning and time for your thing, it could fail simply because, well, I'm sorry, but you're wanting to do this before we can get you the result. So do make sure at least 2 months and preferably 3 or more months. And you can always check on the JECS Trust website for the next calls, but I can tell you the next call after this one is November the 30th because the dates don't change. Latest news is there. It's on the JECS Trust website. You only have to put JECS Trust into Google and you'll find it. And then you go to the news and there's the next call. And it tells you, please note that the decisions of the JECS Trust board will not be known before mid-July. So, a 1st of August start is pushing things. A 1st of September start would be a lot safer and a lot better. And that concludes the presentation. So thank you very much indeed for your attention and any questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Binner, for this complete and detailed explanation of the process. I had a few questions before, but everything is perfectly clear for me now. So I see that Sonia has a question. Maybe you can ask directly if you want.
Yes, of course. This is a question I felt like I had when I was applying for a JECS Trust, so I thought someone else might have this question as well. And the question is, in the case of a doctoral student applying for a JECS Trust to spend 2 to 3 months in a foreign lab, what is expected in regards of publishing? How many papers are adequate? I feel like one paper is generally a quite large commitment to a doctoral student, and the form seems like maybe you expect even more. So
No, you've got to be sensible about this. And if you spend 2 weeks in somebody's lab, it's unlikely you will generate enough information for an entire paper. But so first of all, I would say in general in life, there is a definite trend towards smaller numbers of higher quality papers. Now I sit on many appointment panels. I used to be deputy head of college at the University of Birmingham. I stepped down from the role over 3 years ago now. But I sat on many appointment panels, and people who've got 20 papers, 30 papers, 50 papers, but they're all pretty low quality in low quality journals. They do not fare as well as somebody who's got a smaller number of papers, but they're in top quality journals. Things like JECS, Open Ceramics. We want small numbers of good quality papers. So that's a general statement. So think smaller numbers, but higher quality. Second, of course, it has to be sensible. It has to be reasonable. But if you're just going across to get one number for one table in a paper, why should the JECS Trust pay? So you've got to justify it. If, on the other hand, it's going to make a major contribution to the paper, and that's what we're interested in, we want the paper publishing in our journals. So it comes down largely to common sense, but it's also, you've just got to justify what it is you're trying to do. And don't pretend that it's going to be an entire paper when actually it's one number in one table. Because when the paper comes out, people have long memories. And they will say, hang on a minute, didn't we give some money for this one?
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's nice to hear that you are reasonable.
Oh, I think we're we're lovely people, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. We have two other questions. One from Maximilian. So he said, thank you for your insights. And do you know the approximate rate of acceptance and the average duration for mobility projects?
Oh, now then, that's that. I'm gonna cheat here, and I'm gonna bring Vero into this conversation because she is much more likely to have numbers. I think it's fair. Vero, please comment on this. But I think it's fair to say that the ones that fail, a very high proportion of those are ones who haven't followed the rules. So that I think it's fair to say that the primary reason for people not getting funded are that they haven't followed the rules. A secondary reason why they don't get funded might be that it just doesn't make sense. You know, somebody says, "Oh, well, I want to go and do something." And you think, well, that's a fairly standard technique. You know, why do they really need to travel halfway across Europe? And, you know, the people on the JECS Trust board, we've all been around a little while, and we know in our heads between us what they've got where. And so occasionally you will find someone saying, I want to use this particular technique. And it's a fairly standard technique. And you don't really need to travel halfway across Europe. There's probably a university within 30 to 50 kilometers of their own university. So those are some of the reasons. So I think I'm going to duck saying what percentage are successful. If Vero's got that number, how long is the duration? They vary. They really do. 2-3 weeks is not uncommon. Some people are asking for 1 to 2 months. You can't go more than 3 months. But again, you've got to say why it's going to take that much time. And I remember one fairly recently where somebody was saying, well, we have to do X first, and then there's a sort of a month's gap, and then we want to do something else again. So, and you thought, well, what are you going to do in that month? And that might have been an opportunity to sit there and say, well, actually, 2 visits are going to be needed. But surprisingly, you know, you also think, well, once you've done the hard work, once you've understood the technique, somebody else can do the processing of the data. Why can't the processing of the data be done back in your own university via a Zoom call or something? So again, it's a matter of common sense. Vero, anything to add?
Just to say that we don't have a specific rate of rejection because it really depends from one call to the others and the number of applications we receive. But the more and more application we receive, the more easily some project will be rejected. And last time it was mainly because of ESO's membership, which was not answering the 12 months rule. So last time for 22 mobility projects that were submitted, 8 were rejected. So you have an idea of what happened last time, but we hope that next time it's going to be better due to the presentation today.
Thank you very much indeed, Vero. Thank you.
Yeah, we have another question from Christian. He's asking, can I apply for funding for expensive experiments equipments cover the cost of the experiment and, for example, hot pressing at very high temperature. So yeah,
I think it's always difficult when asked. I mean, if you're asking, and I don't think Christian is asking this, but if Christian was asking, can I buy a hot press and get JECS Trust to buy me a hot press, then I think the answer is no. If Christian wants to go somewhere and use a hot press because they don't have it at their own facility, well, that could be something that you can look under the mobility, because not everywhere has a hot press. But we would expect Christian to seek out the closest hot press, because a hot press is not a piece of equipment where you really need phenomenal technical ability. You just need to be able to load it correctly, unload it correctly, and program it correctly. So therefore, going to the local one, and frankly, going to the local one depends where in Europe you are, of course, might not mean traveling awfully far. And therefore, you've really got to look into this. How can I do this most efficiently? And then is it worth asking? Because if it's €100 for a train fare, then, you know, you should be able to find €100. So I think it is a matter of being common sense about this. The more sophisticated and unusual the technique, the more likely you will have to travel far. Again, if you're just asking for a bit of scanning electron microscopy, well, if you haven't got one in your own lab, you can find one these days within just a small number of kilometers. So I think for a hot press, it's one of those awkward ones where you may well not. I don't have a hot press in my lab, but I've got about 3 located within 60, 70 kilometers of Birmingham. So that's not something I would encourage any of my researchers to apply for. It's too easy for me to do. But if I was in some other parts of Europe, it may well mean going to another country.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Maybe,
We have maybe one
comment.
last question. Oh, sorry.
A quick comment. Sorry. So it's about justification. So if you can show that you don't have a hot press, you know, close by, you can try to justify.
Yeah. So it's difficult to have one rule for everything, because things differ across Europe. Some parts of Europe are extremely well equipped, other parts of Europe less so, and so there may well be some variety, you know, in what is allowed and what is not allowed. So we do our best. We want to fund. That's what the money is there for. We want to do it, and that's why we get frustrated when we get applications. And as Vero said, you know, 8 failed, and of those 8, I can't remember, 6, 7, maybe all 8 of them were on the membership front, and you just think that's silly. That's a silly reason to fail. Hence why we're doing this presentation and making these slides. These are simple checks that people can do and make sure they don't fail.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sure it will help in the future. So we have one last question from Mohammed. So I think he asking, can he apply for a summer school grant while he's still involved in some project, like funded project, like Marie Curie project? So I'm guessing is there's this possibility to get funding when you?
Yeah, Mohammed would need to justify why the funded project was not going to fund. Now and there may be a very good reason for that, because it's just not covered.
Okay.
In which case, if Mohammed says, look, check out the rules, here are the rules, this is the website where you'll find the rules, and you'll see that it just isn't covered or whatever, fine. If, on the other hand, the funded project Mohammed's working on actually says, and you can get the funding for travel, then why are you applying to JECS Trust? So again, as Urka said, get the justifications in there. That doesn't mean taking half a page. It means being as succinct as possible, as concise as possible. Bullet points is fine, but just, yeah, explain to us why this is necessary. And we will consider every single one of the applications we get, and we will do our best to accept it and to find the money for it. We can't obviously fund everything.
Sure. Yeah. We have a question from Farid. He's asking, is there an exception if the host is not a member of ESERS, if there is a rational excuse, or so I guess, for example, in this case, I guess associate directly with another third party or someone else involved with ESERS.
We do, the JECS Trust is, the mobility is for mobility to other ESA's members. So if you're saying there is a facility you need and it doesn't exist anywhere in the ESA's membership, any of the 30 countries within ESA's membership, the next thing to do, I would suggest, would be to get in touch with Vero and ask Vero and say, look, the piece of kit is XYZ, this is what it is. This is why it's so special. This is why it doesn't exist. Vero can pick that up and can ask the rest of us, does anybody know if one of these beasties exists anywhere? And then we can take it from there. And therefore, you're not having to go to all the time and the trouble of filling in an application just to fail on a technicality. But you can get some feedback of either, yes, that would be allowed because, or I'm sorry, that won't be allowed because. And then, of course, if it is allowed, that doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Then you've got to put in a good proposal. But if you think there's if you think this is one where there could be some argument, talk to Vero. Vero is brilliant. She knows the answers to so many questions. And if she doesn't, she's got the whole of the JECS Trust board to ask.
Perfect. Thank you. I think Antonia has a question, so if you want, you can ask directly to Professor Binner.
Yeah, thank you, Nico. I have actually two ones. So I have one that I had while I was writing the proposal, and then when I wanted to apply the second time. So while I was writing, I was concerned, what if data failed? So at the end, how you are going to look at that? And the second question is related to the industry, travels to the industry. They're not possible in the moment to go to the industry, but are they going to be possible in the future?
Okay, let's deal with these. First of all, if you can guarantee me every experiment that you ever do will succeed, I probably won't believe you, or I will come to the conclusion you're not doing very exciting experiments. Research can fail, and often, not always, but often, the most exciting research is also the highest risk research, and we all understand that. Every one of us runs our own research team. We have PhDs and postdocs and things, or we do our own research, and therefore we know that. So yes, we fully understand that sometimes things go wrong. You have to write a final report upon it, and then you would explain why things went wrong and hopefully what you're going to do better next time round, because hopefully it's a learning curve. In terms of the second question, we do go for non-profit organizations such as universities, research labs and things. What we really don't want to do is just to help fund industry, because industry should be funding itself, and there are a lot of government in all the countries. There are funding schemes which will help industry. Again, if you think, well, actually the facility I need only exists in this company, because talk to Vero before writing the application. I can't see us changing the rule. My crystal ball is not perfect, but I cannot see us changing that rule, not in the short term. But again, as I said, for what happens if I want to go outside Europe, talk to Vero, make the case, and see what, and if Vero isn't sure of the answer, she will ask the rest of us before somebody spends a lot of time writing a proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Antonia. So I think we don't have other questions. Yeah. So thank you again, Professor Binner, for this very complete and detailed explanation and presentation. So I guess now Sonia and Antonia wanted to have a brief discussion together about experience with JECS Trust funding. So ladies, if you want to discuss about your experience, go ahead. Thank you again, Professor Binner.
Thank you very much. Yes, thanks. Actually, for me, this is very fresh because I've only returned from my JECS Trust last week. So it's my first week at home. And I'm actually from the University of Chemistry and Technology in Prague, in the Czech Republic. And my JECS Trust project was in Italy, in Faenza, at the institute that's called ISTEC, as short. And the topic of this project was lead-free piezoelectric ceramics. And yeah, that's it. Now, Antonia, if you could explain where you went and what have you done?
Thank you, Sonia. So
What have you done?
I went last year, and I'm working at Faculty of Chemical Engineering and Technology, University of Zagreb, and I went to Estonia to Tallinn Technology University because they had like printer for selective laser melting that I really do not have anything anywhere nearby. So I was going there for a month and a half.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Can I ask you both, how successful were your projects?
If I can start, well, there were many complications, and I felt like the material I was investigating, I don't know what happened with it. It was terrible. But besides that, we were able to find out a lot of interesting stuff that will be hopefully published. I believe so. But yeah, it was a learning curve because the reason why I went to this lab was to learn the know-how. And yeah.
Good, it was a learning curve. That's the vital thing.
For me, so it was like month and a half stay at Estonia, but we arrived. I write the proposal like we will start before. I will start here the materials. I will go there, and then I will continue when I come back. So I can say it was successful. We had some failures. I explained them, but we have the successful results. So I published one paper in Open Ceramics by now, and now finally everybody is reading the second one, and I hope it will be soon then applied to Open Ceramics. So, but yeah,
Brilliant.
we had fails. We had fails.
Well, yeah, that's life. That's research.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe I can ask Sonia why actually you choose JECS Trust. Why was the one for you?
Well, actually, I have to say JECS Trust was my first choice to apply for the funding because, first of all, as you saw, it's very generous. And I have to say what was very nice is the straightforward form, the application, where you just need to write one page description of the project, not many pages explaining everything in detail and so on. So that was perfect. And also what was perfect is that you can apply 2 times a year. So even though you decide quite late, you would like to go somewhere and learn something or use some equipment and so on, you can do that quite easily. And the other thing is that what's different about JECS Trust in comparison, for example, to Erasmus, which was available to me as well, is that there is actually a budget for consumables and for the use of facilities. And if you are doing something in a host institution, it's not for free. So this was a factor to me. And yeah, and I have to say the 2.5 months was for me the ideal time as well to establish some new collaboration and to learn a little bit of know-how and so on. So JECS Trust was just perfect for my intentions.
Yeah, in my case, it was just like the continuation because, for example, I went to Nickel Convoy in Estonia and we met in 2019 in Daytona Beach that Jon mentioned. So we both received grant from the JECS Trust to go there. We met there, which then started to develop the idea about the research that we want to do, and then it was like a natural that we will apply for the JECS Trust. So yeah, this was my case. So yeah. And how did you choose, Sonia, your institution? How did you find?
Well, actually, I was looking at which institution I could visit to learn something, because we have actually started a completely new topic in our lab, and it was my responsibility to get this new topic running. And after a few months, I found out, well, despite reading all the literature and so on, it's not enough. Simply as it is. So I was looking around, and I was very lucky because I talked to one of my colleagues in Italy, and he was so nice to ask his colleagues, which are experts in this topic, and they were happy to establish contact with us. And actually now it seems that we have developed a long-term collaboration, which is very nice, and yeah, perfect opportunity. But I have to say it was not without challenges, because well, the application process was perfect, everything was perfect, we had great contact with our Italian colleagues and so on. But I have to say what was very hard for me was to find accommodation. Yeah, that was very very the greatest challenge for me in the end. How about you, Antonia?
Oh, my only challenge was COVID-19, and I needed to postpone a few months, and I was just like waiting that everything ends so I can go to Estonia. So this was my challenge in that time. Yeah.
The only challenge.
Yes, the biggest challenge. Yeah. And Sonia, at the end, like you are like freshly back home. So when you look at it, what are the benefits that you have from this experience?
I have to say, I really learned a lot of things. I met many nice people that I hope that I will stay in touch with. And as I already mentioned, it seems like this is just a start of a long-term collaboration. So that's perfect. And I'm actually going for 2 extra weeks to Italy in summer to continue working on this topic and so on. So that was just perfect. And the other thing I feel like is very important is to, for everyone, every researcher, is to stay in a different country for a little bit of time, because you find out about different culture. And that's not only about like the everyday stuff, but perhaps you see that in their lab they are doing something a bit differently than you do, and it might be slightly better, or the other way around. And that's very important experience, I would say. And yeah, last but not least, it was beautiful experience travel wise. As Jon mentioned in the beginning, I wasn't on a Greek island, but I was in Italy, so I really enjoyed a lot of good gelato and travel. So recommend to everyone.
Very nice.
How about you, Antonia?
So if I can, yeah, if
what
I
are
can,
the long-term benefits?
yes. For me, the benefit, of course, was the equipment that I do not have in my laboratory, and of course, the continuation of collaboration. Because when you go there, then you can see what else they have, then you can use later, and then the collaboration, just like let's say, like that, rolls. Other benefit is, of course, publication in open ceramics, and it is covered by JECS Trust, so it is like 2,000 US dollars, if I'm correct. And this is like paid by JECS Trust, so it is like really good opportunity. So it is paid on the money you received for the travels. So yeah, this is my experience for that. And if I can conclude only by giving the advice to everybody who is listening to us, is find a good friend or colleague who can read it at the end, make good criticism on everything that you write. I did the same. So Erica was my colleague who did that, and it helped me a lot, because you are so in the writing and you do not see maybe the lacks. So find this friend and colleague, and yeah.
That's definitely important.
Criticism, yeah. And Sonia, your final, let's say, advice.
You're welcome,
for...
Antonia.
Thank you.
Yes, I feel like you definitely need a second pair of eyes to read your proposal. But my suggestion is that you shouldn't be afraid to contact people abroad that have the equipment you need or the know-how you need. They are usually extremely nice from my point of view, and see if they are interested in collaboration, because such collaboration can really help your career and the research in ceramics. So don't be afraid of it and apply. Ask Veronique. That's a very important one. I asked her multiple times about something, and she was always very nice, and she always helped me. So that's just perfect. And I think that's it.
Yeah. So if somebody has any questions for us, you can do it now, or you can always contact us. You know that you can always contact us in any time on social media. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for this great experience that you have. I may have a question, maybe just naive. Is it possible to get some examples of accepted proposal of JECS Trust, or it's confidential?
It's available on the JECS Trust website.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, perfect.
if we, in the news part, we publish to whom we gave the grants usually, and so just basic information to go to that lab and from
Okay.
that length, but it's available.
Okay, thank you, Vero. I mean, anyone wants to add something, or last question maybe before closing this very nice webinar?
I'm happy. That was a good webinar, good discussion. Thank you, girls.
So thank you again, John. Thank you again, everyone, for this great webinar. I hope it will help a lot of people and youngsters to write proposal, get funding to move and improve the science and also networking activities. Thank you again, and see you soon. I hope for everyone in Krakow in 2 months now. So see you soon in Poland. Take care, everyone. Thank you again.
See you soon.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
See you soon, guys.
And
Thank
good
you.
luck,
Bye.
everyone. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.